There are different ways in which people can be annoying. Some write text messages without using punctuation. Others start unprepared opening attacks hoping to defeat you quickly. Today we're going to learn 5 rules of Bobby Fischer that he used to punish such attempts brutally. Fischer was playing white here against beach, and he is using his best by test move, pawn e4. Black responds with a little unconventional chess opening, which brings us already to the rule number 1. When your opponent plays something a little bit unusual or strange, ask yourself what is his idea? What is he going to do next? And you usually need to focus on your side of the board and ask yourself what are the forced moves that my opponent can play. For example, imagine white did not follow the rule and just decided, okay, he just played bishop g4 trying to pin my knight, let me get rid of this pin, and you decide to attack this bishop. Well, guess what? After the trade, black is going to pick up this undefended pawn on d4, and they successfully tricked you. Fischer, of course, figured it out and played bishop e3, which not only develops a bishop, but also reinforces this pawn on d4. Now, black continued with knight to d7. At this point, there is no immediate danger, but nevertheless, there is one thing that you absolutely need to address straight away. There is an opponent's piece on your side of the board, and in such positions, you always need to neutralize it somehow. Attack it and force it to be traded off or push it back. So white goes pawn h3. And by the way, here's an important thing about this. At the moment, it seems that this pin is not really a problem for white, right? You may be thinking like, so what? Okay, this knight is really well defended. But this problem is when there is an opponent's piece on your side of the board, it tends to be annoying long term, and sooner or later it may become a problem. For example, let's say you develop a piece, right? Just getting ready to castle. And again, right now your position seems good, but now he goes e5, and now already he starts attacking this pawn, and the fact that your knight is pinned already becomes a bit problematic. If you start trading off everything on e5, then again at the end of the line we can see that the knight is pinned, and now black is also adding more attacks to it, and again you start feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Of course, it's not the end of the world, but nevertheless you can see that there is some trouble. Fischer, of course, knew the rule, and therefore he played pawn h3, neutralizing black's piece on his side of the board. After the trade, black continues with his development, so does white, and then after a couple moves, black goes queen a5. Now, the move in itself does not create a threat yet, but nevertheless, it's a pain in the a-file, and it's always putting pressure down here, so Fischer decided to play this prophylactic move, king to b1, and then rook b8. Now, black clearly demonstrates their intent. They're going to go into this all-out attack on the queen side. Now, that is a very interesting point, which brings us to the next rule. Now, usually, when you see situations like that, our usual way of thinking is, okay, he's attacking on the queen side, let me attack on the king side, and we start marching our own king side pawns forward. Now, while it makes some sense, there is the other rule, which is actually even stronger. And it says counter their flank attacks by your central attack. Because center of the board is the most dominant area, and if you control the center, you control the game. Therefore, if your opponent does not try actively to participate in the central battle, but instead deviates to the side, you gotta take advantage of this opportunity and seize this space in the center. Seize the control of the game, and that is why Fischer played pawn e5, challenging this pawn. Now, after the trade, notice that now we've got this rook, we've got our bishop striking right there, and it actually makes it much harder for black to do something active on the queen side. Plus, we shut it down, this bishop, completely, therefore it can no longer attack our queen side. A lot of good things just from a little pawn move in the center of the board. Anyways, black goes knight to d5, attacking right here, putting pressure all around. And if you've been following this channel for some time, you know that to take is a mistake. It usually helps your opponent. Therefore, instead of just trading off knights, Fischer goes knight e4 with a much stronger idea of jumping forward and creating threats. Now, of course, at this point, it looks like the most obvious solution for black to simply castle kingside out of danger. However, white's pawns here are very advanced, and I understand that it might seem pretty risky for black to do so. Perhaps black thought that white is going to quickly push these pawns forward and win the game. Therefore, instead, black decided to play bishop f8 and control the square this way. Now, it's of course not exactly right, and Fischer maybe just thought that, okay, black decided that it's all over right here, and Fischer says like, okay, bro, you may try it out in the next game. He also starts to set it up for the next game, retreating the bishop to its original square. Probably he expected next logical moves of black, preparing for the next game, but instead, all of a sudden, black played pawn b5. He says, no way, I'm going for the kill. I'm actually going to win the game. Which brings us to the next rule. which is offense is the best defense. When your opponent is attacking you and you just keep defending all the time, it's easy for your opponent to keep creating more and more threats. And the only way to break this pattern is just to start the attack of your own. So Fischer goes pawn f5, this time trying to actually open up black's king. Now, black goes pawn b4, still creating some threats. And after the trade, think about this. How would we play in a position like that? It's interesting to compare how we models play this and how Fischer does this. Now, very often in positions like that, you see, oh, his king is actually exposed. He's violating opening rules. He does not develop his pieces properly. He's going for the shady attack on the queen side. Let me just punish him and I'll just go knight g5, play queen f7 check, knight takes c6, and he's done, right? We are already in the anticipation of a quick victory, but then your opponent plays knight takes c5, all of a sudden attacking your queen, also guarding the square f7. You think, okay, I'll just retreat my queen, whatever, and counterattack, but then he plays knight c3 check. And now you start calculating variations and you realize that it does not really look that good, because after the trade, now all of a sudden this rook is active and it is checking your king. The king moves, he creates a battery along the b file, and you're done. And this is one of those really annoying situations that happen to us when we think that, okay, our opponent did everything wrong. He did not develop his pieces. He went for this hasty attack, and yet somehow I lost the game. What the heck is going on here? And then people start to come up with all sorts of different explanations, like, I need to solve more tactical puzzles, or my parents didn't believe in me when I was 10 and it all started back then. But the real explanation is much easier. Here's a simple opening rule to prevent 90% of all opening disasters. Castle within the first 10 moves and finish your development within 15 moves. So Fischer simply played bishop to c4, completing his development, bringing his last piece into play, and simultaneously this bishop also actually is ready to defend the king if necessary. If any time in the future black will try to go for this attack on the queen side, white has this really handy bishop which is ready to block the file, and white is doing well. With that being said, black refused to back down and he played knight takes c5 with this double attack. And Fischer responded to the double attack by the skewer of his own. Now the knight is attacked, but it can't go away because that would expose this rook behind the knight. Therefore, black played bishop to g7, defending the knight this way. Which brings us to the rule number 5. Think about this, black violated so many opening rules, but now he's getting ready to castle and his position will become pretty good. Which brings us to the rule, strike while the bar is hot. Now I'll turn on the evaluation bar and you can see how computer is getting more and more excited about the position. This is the situation where you need to seize the moment. You need to strike when it's hot and start looking at forced moves on your opponent's side of the board. And forced moves are checks, captures, and attacking moves on his side of the board. With that in mind, Fischer found a brilliant move bishop to h6, which actually gives white a winning game, even though it's still not that easy. What can black do now? Well, obviously if he takes the knight right here, then after bishop takes g7 it counts with this double attack and black is done. So that is pretty simple. It's trickier if black captures the bishop instead. This leaves this knight on e5 undefended and white can take it. Initially it looks like white is attacking these two rooks as well as this pawn and black is just done. However, black can simply castle and all of a sudden it's not all that simple. Nevertheless, there are different ways for white to finish the game off. One of the most elegant ones is starting with this check, and after the king moves anywhere, there is another really tricky move, knight to e8, which opens up this check, but more importantly, it breaks the connection between rooks. And as the king moves out of check, white can simply go ahead and grab this rook on b8. That's why instead of taking any of white's pieces, black responded with queen to c7, quite a nice move, solidifying everything in black's position, and now white is at the crossroad. They need to do something with this knight on e4, and Fischer says, no problem, if I need to move my knight, I'll do just that. And he jumps forward, knight d6, check. Now, black can't really take this knight, because in this case, this bishop turns into a beast. After bishop takes g7, it literally attacks every beast that black has within a scope of 2 moves, and black is done. This means that black needs to move his king somewhere. But where can it go? It can't go to the 7th rank because in this case it breaks the connection between the queen and the bishop. White can take it and once again has this double attack and white wins. If the king goes to f8, then it is really exposed here. There are different ways for white to win the game, and queen takes e5 is the funniest using this double pin. In the actual game, Black decided to move the king to the final square that we haven't analyzed yet, king to d8. But you know how to find strong attacking moves, right? Focus your attention on opponent's side of the board and ask yourself, what are the forcing moves that I can play there? Which are checks, captures, attacking moves. And Fischer followed the rule and figured out this little combo, which looks like a puzzle of the day, leading to this strongest attacking move that you can ever play, triple royal fork. By the way, a knight is such a tricky piece that even after this triple fork, it still threatens one more fork right on the next turn, but Black decided that enough is enough and just resigned. I hope it was helpful, and if you want to supercharge your chess progress, I've got a course Level Up Your Chess, which contains everything that you need, a step-by-step blueprint for getting yourself to a level of 2000. So if you're curious, you can check it out by clicking the link below the video, and the link will also be somewhere on the screen. Either way, have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon.